Howdly doodly do! Welcome everyone to the fashionably late review of Axiom Verge 2. We are always fashionably late, but we still have some words about games the second time. I am your host for this episode, David Mark Moody, the glorious one, and joining me as always is my fabulous co-host, the glorious Amy Kate Alexander, who wants to talk about Axiom Verge 2 again. Amy, how are you doing?
Yeah, that's the only time the name of this video series is going to be ironic because we recorded this last week and then the video file corrupted. And I'm here again to talk about Axiom Verge 2, and that's going to be hilarious to anybody who sits through and listens to everything I'm about to say about Axiom Verge 2 over the course of the next X amount of minutes. I'm good, thank you.
Very good. General information for Axiom Verge 2 is it is available on Nintendo Switch PC and the PlayStation. Came out August 11th, 2021, and it's developed and published by Thomas Harper Games, and the genres are action and platformer. The description for this game: in this sequel to the critically acclaimed game, you explore an alternative Earth-like world, repel with the ruins of an ancient high-tech civilization. Excuse me, but something else is lurking just past the fringes of reality, waiting to pull you in. Amy, did this game pull you in, and did it tickle all the fancy as it did the first time? I mean, the first game.
Oh, I thought it was like, wait, what? Is this going to be some kind of meta video where we just constantly reference a video that doesn't exist? No, it didn't. Like, Axiom Verge 2... it's a game I wanted to love, like, a lot, because I loved the first game a lot. Like, it's 2015 it came out. It was one of my favorite games. It was one of my favorite games on PlayStation, because it was a PlayStation exclusive originally. And it was one of my, like, I'd say, like, one of my favorite PlayStation games. I know it came to other platforms eventually, but... and, like, I wanted to love Axiom Verge 2, because I was like, I love the first one so much, and I have to just admit to myself that I didn't. It's the first game we've reviewed on a Fashion Late review in maybe since we started doing them as separate videos that I haven't finished. And I don't intend to.
Let me just turn my light on.
Ah,
there we go. I realized I'm going darker. Get some light around here. But yes, that's a shame. Obviously, we don't want to talk badly on a game or anything like that, but obviously if it didn't work for you, it didn't work for you. But before we get into the things that didn't work for you, is there anything that did work for you on this game?
Yeah, so like it's nuanced, right? I'm not sitting here and going, Axiom Verge 2 is a bad game. It's like, it's not a bad game. And there are people who are gonna love it, and I love that. But for me personally, it was like I got to a point where I was like, I want to stop now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm done. I'm done with the game. The game is not done, but I am done with it. What worked for me in the game? The Metroidvania-ness of the game, that's totally a thing. Like, it worked for me really well. Like, you start off, you play as Indra, is the name of the main character, and you're in Antarctica, and then you find a lift, and you go down the lift, and whoops, you're in, like, alternate universe Antarctica, where there's like robots and aliens and shit. And as you're progressing through the level, like, you'll see it's the classic Metroidvania like experience where it's like you'll see like, oh, there's something like I can get over that at some point when I have the correct ability. And the abilities that you get and the way that you can use them to traverse the world are really cool, and they're really interesting, and they're really creative. Like there's the drone, for example, which plays a huge part in this game, where it's like you can, when you get it, you can like throw it out, and then you can control the drone and like move around the world as the drone. And that plays into a key mechanic that I'm going to talk about when Moody asks me about things I didn't like so much. But the game does something really cool with traversal, where it's like it's always fun to explore the world, like, and find all of the secrets, the nukes, the crannies, and use your abilities in really interesting ways. And the game has these really awesome twists that I'm not going to spoil in terms of like how you even traverse the world from like a basic level, where it's like you play it as in one way for a bit, and then something happens, and then you play it in another way for like another chunk, and then something else happens, and then you play it in another way for another chunk of the game, and it's like that's really cool. And it was really cool. Like the game was changing it up every few hours on me, and I loved that. This is great. And one of the abilities was you blow yourself up, essentially. And I was like, I'm always for that because that's how I feel most of the time. If I could just blow myself up right now, that'd be great.
Oh bless. Please don't.
I won't. No, I mean, it's like a special ability, right? It doesn't hurt. You just blow rocks up. It's fine.
You're obviously a big fan of the first game.
Such a big fan.
But you're obviously a little bit sour on this game. So what hasn't sadly worked for you on this one that's made you change completely?
I'm just going to be honest and blunt and say that there's one reason above... In fact, above most of the reasons, there's like two major things that didn't work for me in this game. But there's one reason why I do not vibe with this game in the way that I vibed with the first one. And that is that they changed the combat system completely from what it, like in Axiom Verge 1, you were exploring this alien world as Trace, and you found all these weird and cool guns, right? Like they all did different things, and you could use them for different things, and some of them you could even use to like help you with traversing the levels and stuff. And in Axiom Verge 2, you get an axe and a boomerang, and there are no guns. So the whole game is now flipped over, and it's a melee combat game, and some people are going to love that. But for me, I just did not enjoy the combat in this game at all. I didn't any aspect of fighting in this game, because for me, it's very simplistic, which isn't a bad thing. Like I love games that are simple, but for this type of game, number one, there's a lot of flying enemies which you got to try and hit with an axe, which is just annoying no matter what. And like the boomerang doesn't do that much damage; it's not really worth trying to use it. But it's like it just became. The melee combat made it so like it just became I was just swinging the axe as fast as possible and hoping that I killed the enemy before it ran my health bar down. And I was bored of that, you know? I got bored quite quickly of that. Like it extends to the boss fights, where it's like Axiom Verge 1 had these great huge boss fights, and you had to get past them. You had to fight these cool bosses, and then you get past and you go to the next level or get a new ability to like traverse to a different place or whatever. In Axiom Verge 2, all the boss fights are optional, which is cool because not everybody wants to get stuck on these big behemoth bosses, right? And you can just run past all of them in Axiom Verge 2, which is a cool idea, but the boss fights themselves then suffer, which is compounded by which from my perspective is compounded by the fact that you have this melee combat system where it's like the boss in the first area when I fought them, it was just literally like I ran up to them and I hit them with the hammer, and there was no like strategy, and trying to dodge the projectiles was very difficult because I was so close to the boss that it was very difficult to dodge when it started shooting at me. There was one cool boss that I did, which was like an underwater one, but it was like it was almost like in a puzzle, as opposed to like just straight up fighting, where it's like I had to like knock rocks down on it as it was coming past, instead of like just like hitting the boss, which was pretty neat and pretty clever. But for the most part, like the bosses are kind of like emblematic of my entire experience with like fighting in this game, where it's just like I didn't like doing it. I hate it, and I got bored of it very quickly. And I used the exceptionally good accessibility sliders, the difficulty sliders, to turn my damage all the way up and turn the enemy's damage all the way down. And somehow that didn't alleviate the boredom that I felt. But it did allow me to play on for a few extra hours because I was enjoying exploring the world. But even then, I still got bored and stopped.
It is a very fine issue when it comes to like gameplay in general. You have to find that right balance where you are where you're having fun, but also you have to move the game along and everything. And it does seem like, so obviously, if I remember right, the first one is it's a gun game. Yes, I believe it's
yeah. You get guns. That's it. That's how you do it. You shoot.
Yeah.
all sorts of weird guns. Yeah,
But
it's probably
I'll
too
say that,
many,
like,
but
yeah. So I'll say this because I haven't played this game, ladies and gentlemen, or anything like that. But I do want to just shout out one thing, like for it, is that it's ballsy to change from what you did for the first game, which was what I've just seen from a lot of the reviews I've just read, critically acclaimed. A lot of people loved it. To change it to go to a throwing axe type game, and that's ballsy. And I'll give the man a lot of credit for going to change it up, not to stick to the same formula and try something different. So I'll give him mad respect on that.
yeah, definitely.
But it does seem like it's something that, going through the reviews I've just had a quick glance over, it does seem like the gameplay is the thing that does hold this game back a little bit. And that's disappointing here, because that's obviously the main element of a game these days.
Yeah. Like, it's not the fact that it was changed that's not inherently bad, right? Or, like, inherently, like, it's just that the change that was made the game vibe with me less, right? Like, you want to talk about, like, you know, like, game developers should be able to make whatever they want to fucking make. And you want to talk about the best example of that? Well, going from Killzone to Horizon, right? Like, like, night and day, same developer, though. Like, it's cool that, like, you know, Tom Happ decided to make like, from a gameplay perspective, almost completely different type of game. And that's cool. But for me, it didn't, the changes didn't work for me.
Yeah. Because if he wanted to, you probably could have got Axiom Verge 2 out a lot more faster if he just kept the gameplay the same, just changed the world up.
Yeah, probably. Like, if
he
it was just like,
could have, but he took a risk, and I'm
changing the guns, or I'm giving you extra guns. It's like, no, I'm giving you an axe. Now I got to change. Yeah, and it's probably why it took so long for a second game to come out, because it's like, cool, now you got to change. Because with melee combat versus gun combat, it's like, cool, now you got to change everything. You got to change the enemies and the way they attack. You got to change the levels and the way you get around them. Like, you're putting in, like, boss arenas that, like, by your own design, you have to be able to get past them all without fighting the boss. You know, it's like he made a lot of cool changes to this game. And I will say that this game, like Axiom Verge 1, in places was quite a difficult game. And Axiom Verge 2 is a lot more accessible for people because of things like, you know, like, I sit here and say that the melee combat didn't vibe with me, but melee combat is one button. It's push and square, right? Whereas, like, when you've got, like, a multitude of guns on a weapon wheel, it's like remembering where all the guns are and what they do and figuring out which gun to use and which gun is best in which situation and which gun's going to get you killed, because you shouldn't be trying to use it in the thing that you're trying to do. And then layered on top of that is being able to skip the bosses, and then layered on top of that is there's difficulty sliders in the game that didn't exist in the first one. So, like, you can modify a lot about this game to suit you. It's not even just a case of going easy, normal, hard. It's a case of, cool, you can, like, tweak sliders, like in Control, where it's like you can tweak the sliders to have the experience that you want to have, or like Celeste, for example. And I think that's really cool. Like, that's really cool to, like, open your game up to be more accessible to more people. It's great. It's a great idea.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that both of us champion accessibility, making the games a lot more accessible for anybody out there with any disability for whatsoever. So it's always great to hear.
Or even if you just want to play a fucking easier game, like yourself, Mood.
There's that as well, yeah. But easy, I think easy again put into accessibility these days, which maybe should or shouldn't. Maybe I'm not really fully sure on that one. But yeah, no, I completely agree. This is a great element to a game when it comes to accessibility. You always should have it. Any game developer should be championing it these days. I think that's basically it. Is there anything else you want to say before we get into your final thoughts?
I mean, a couple of things. There was the second thing I wanted to talk about that didn't work for me, which was so it's a Metroidvania, lots of map exploration, but there's two maps essentially to the game. So you got the main map, which is the one that you're exploring when you first start. For me, it was the one I explored the most often. But obviously, like, I didn't go through the whole game, so maybe that's not true all the way through. But there's like a second map you can access with the drone that I mentioned before when I was saying it has a bigger impact in the game this time because you had one in the last game as well. And it's a cool idea where it's like, okay, so there's breach points in parts of the map where you can deploy your drone and then the drone can go through the breach point and then it goes into a different. It's like, so if this is like alternate Antarctica, that would be like alternate Antarctica. Where it's like the graphics get even more pixely, the world gets even more alien, and you navigate it as this little drone dude, and you use that as part of like progressing across the world and like finding new areas to get to or finding new abilities to allow you to get to new areas. It's a great idea. And one sec, I'm gonna cough. It's a great idea, but like, and at first it's really cool because you go into a breach point, say here in the map on the main map, and then you basically all you're doing is you're following the level around and you look for the next breach point. And when you exit it in the same physical place as you were in. So it's like the two maps are like laid on top of each other, right? And like you go from one to the other. So if you move from like here, I don't know why I was doing it to my hand there so you couldn't see. If you move from like here, and then you go into a breach point, and then the next breach point is up here, then on the Antarctica, the normal Antarctica map, you travel from here to here. Which is really cool at first. But then it starts becoming more and more complicated the further into the game you go. So like all of a sudden, you'll start unlocking the ability to move breach points, which also moves the entrance and exit points around the normal world. Eventually, you start unlocking the ability to just leave the breach world whenever you want, which means you can just pop up wherever. So you've got to start trying to be able to navigate one map while sort of remembering where you are on the other map so that you can pop out in the right place. And it becomes way too complicated. And for me personally, like impossible, like next to impossible to progress because I got to try and navigate. I'm essentially trying to navigate one map while traveling on a different map, basically.
Yeah.
Like if you told me to like travel from like fucking London to Kent, right? But then you gave me a map and you rubbed out all of the place names, and I got to try and remember where Kent is. And oops, I just popped out and I'm in Torquay because I didn't know where Kent was. Because I've got terrible memory, right? Like that's like the kind of metaphor for how that works. And it's a really cool and creative idea, but it overwhelmed me to the point where I was just like, I don't know if I can do this.
That's understandable, yeah. Like it's just maybe having something in that can literally get you to go back to it easier, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. It's weird. It's like there's a compass that I don't understand the purpose of it because.
Can you not teleport in it, may I ask?
Well, you can fast travel between save points, but it's the problem is when you're trying to like get to the next area or like get to a hidden area, it's like obviously you can't fast travel there. So like when you like because the breach becomes more important the further into the game you go. And it's like, yeah, it's like trying to figure out where you've got to exit the breach is very, very difficult for someone who's like, I have a hard time navigating anyway. Like, and then it's like, and you're layering that complication on top of it, and I'm like, I don't know where I am, and then I've popped out and I'm in the wrong place, so now I've got to do it again. And it's like it was very difficult for me to like figure that out, you know.
Yeah, no, understandable, no doubt about it. I think like getting lost, not finding where you go, and it can literally suck you out from a game. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
like, it's that fine tuning, that right balance.
There's like getting lost
that's needed in any game.
There's getting lost, but still like finding stuff. Like when I was playing Bloodborne, I got lost all the time, but when I got lost, I'd find cool shit everywhere. And for a bit in Axiom Verge 2, I'd get lost and I'd find cool shit, and I'd be like, this is cool, still cool, because I'm still finding cool shit. But then when it came down to it, I was like, I was still getting lost and just not finding my way to where I needed to go. And then I was starting to get frustrated, and which was compounded by the combat that I wasn't liking.
Well, that's disappointing, no doubt about it. Is there anything else before your final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that I'm going for the trifecta here of all three games that we're reviewing this week. The soundtrack is fantastic. I said it 3 times this week, but it is. The soundtrack's great. It's very much like the game. It's very different from a type of soundtrack from its predecessor, which is great. Like, I love both soundtracks. And it's on Spotify, and I was listening to it. So even though I'm not vibing with the game, I'm still listening to the soundtrack on Spotify. So there's that at least.
And that's what you want. That is what you want, no doubt about it. Final thoughts, Amy, on Axiom Verge 2.
Like, I didn't vibe with it for very specific reasons. I hope you've sat through. If you sat through the video and listened to the reasons why, I hope you've like listened to it, because I feel like this is a game that's not for me, but it could be for you. So like, if you're interested in the game and you've hit this video and you've seen me go, I didn't really like it as much as I wanted to, like, check out some other stuff and just like consider whether it might still be a game for you, because it might still be a game for you. This is in no way like me sitting here going, it's a bad game you should avoid. It's like, it's a game you might like that I didn't. Well, I did something. I just didn't vibe with it as much. Like, I got played like fucking
didn't work
8 or 9
compared to the
hours.
first game.
Yeah, I played it like for like 8 or 9 hours. So like, I didn't hate it for sure. Like, I don't hate myself that much. Jesus.
Very good. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for this review of Axiom Verge. Let us know what you think of the game. Did you like it? Did you not agree with Amy? Are you in the middle, or did you agree with Amy where it just did not work for you? Leave a comment down below and let us know what you think of it. As it is time for us to get the hell out of here and play some more video games for us to eventually review them, because we are the Fashionably Late Reviews, and we are out of here for the second time. Say bye, Amy.
Bye, Amy.